Hi, I'm Lou Scott, and this is a Geppetto Room, where you don't have to be creative, you just have to be you. Now, last show, we talked about that this show is about discoveries, discovering techniques, concepts, how to make better transformative ideas. That's the whole idea of the show. You're going to discover techniques that I'm going to share with you. But on the other hand, also, this show is about experience. Now, let me explain that. For 35 years, I ran an agency in New York City, a small advertising agency, against very large New York agencies. In order to be competitive, to keep our clients, we had to be very creative, and we developed, doing that, we developed our own ways of creating ideas. They're not necessarily the step-by-step ways that we've been talking about as techniques. They can be called a little crazy, a little aberrative, certainly idiosyncratic, but they're ideas that work. And what happened is, when they didn't work, they created other pathways in our brain that created other ideas, other ways, other techniques. Again, we're going to the whole show is about trying to develop a toolbox of concepts and techniques that you can use to make better decisions. Because you heard me say this, you cannot solve new problems with old ideas. Can't be done. As technology creates our future, we have to create new ways to take advantage of our opportunities and find out how we can solve our problems if we have problems. Personal problems, business problems, problems as being Vermonters, and we certainly had that. Now, with that said, let me give you an idea of a transformative concept, transformative idea. This is actually an MBA case study at a leading university. This builder built this beautiful multi-storied building, elevated building for businesses, and people just rushed in there to try to take over. But as soon as they got in, within 2 or 3 weeks, they were ready to leave because the building had a major problem. What was the problem? The elevators were too slow, too slow. People were complaining that the employees weren't efficient. They were angry. Their customers wouldn't come to the building, on and on and on. And they said to the owner, either you fix it or we're out of here. So he got together with a brainstorming conference. He put together experts, elevator experts, engineers, building experts, and they handled the problem and solved it. They certainly did. But the solution would cost millions of dollars. He wasn't going to have that, the owner. So he disbanded that group. And what he did was, he put together a Delphi group. Remember we talked about that? A brainstorming conference where you have people who have more diversified backgrounds. The more diversified the backgrounds, the more creative the ideas will be, the more transformative. So he got his accountant, he got his manager, whatever he put together, and they solved the problem. What they did was around the elevator banks and the elevator hallways, they put glass and mirrors, actually mirrors all the way in the thing, and on the opposite side of the hallway, they put mirrors. Now, you ask yourself, what the heck, how can a mirror make an elevator go faster? Doesn't. It morphs the time. But let me tell you how it works. The most important thing in your life, no matter what your title is, father, engineer, doctor, is you. You're important. Now, I don't know about you, and I'm not much to look at, but I have a very difficult time walking past a mirror without looking at it. And if there's no people around, I look at it more. Therefore, I'm involved in a pleasurable experience. Now, that's why the mirrors were there. Instead of people standing around angsting because the elevator is so slow, they were involved in themselves, the most important thing that they have in their life, themselves. Disney does it all the time. If you're in line for a ride, what does he do? The ride and the line is going to be long. So what he does, he brings characters over. The characters entertain you. The time becomes personable, and then the time goes by, and before you know it, you're on the ride. It morphs the time. Now that solution, what I just told you, is a transformative solution. Why? Because it changes both internally and externally. And that's what we have to do. We have to create new ideas to live a better life as Vermonters, as human beings in this state. So let's get back to my creations, my dioramas. You know how it works. I will tell you about the story about the diorama, what I was trying to depict as an artist. That story should generate for you different kinds of pathways in your brain. And those pathways you hopefully can use another time to create ideas, transformative ideas. At one point in time, I'll stop the story and I'll say, this is a Geppetto moment. Now that Geppetto moment, it will be a technique that you can use, put in your toolbox. And don't forget, the 3 techniques I'm going to talk about today are a little aberrative, a little crazy, but they work. Let's go to the first one. This I call Energized Trees. I read that there are about 8 to 10 trillion trees in the world. Trees, think about them. People write poetry about them. They bear fruit. We walk among them and we love the forests. We use the wood for furniture, for housing and so forth. They absorb CO2. They create oxygen. And yet, with all those good advantages, what do? We indiscriminately tear them down. We cut them down. We don't replace them. We have to stop that. We have to stop because they energize the world. That's the story of this piece. Hopefully, you'll think about it and you'll generate better ideas or generate new pathways in your brain. Now, what's the Geppetto moment? Little nuts. I talk to myself. Yes, we all talk to ourselves mentally. You walk around and you have all these voices in your mind arguing, and most of the time those voices are negative. I don't do that. Sometimes I do. What I do is if I have a particular problem, what I do is I create a character, 2 characters, two people, and I have this argument, this debate about the issue. During that debate, which I say out loud, I actually solve the problem. It's amazing how the brain reaches down when you're talking out loud to another individual within yourself. It's interesting how you can come up with better ideas. It's a technique. Again, if it doesn't work for you, I'd say try it at least. But if it doesn't work for you, at least it may create other ideas for you to do, put into your toolbox. That's the whole idea of the whole show. Let's go to the second piece. This is interesting. I call it Hobo. I read an article. It's a fun piece. I read an article about hobos. The first thing I read is that the beginning, people who jumped on rails usually began in the 30s during the Depression time. During the Depression, young boys would go hop the rails and go Midwest, where they would work as farmers with hoes, hoe boys. That's the idea. That's where the word came from, but it's debatable. People say that's not where the word came from, but who cares? It's an interesting kind of idea, and it's charming. What's charming also, and interesting in a way, is that hobos still exist. There are people who live that life for 60, 70 years, 3 generations. In Kansas, once a year, they have a hobo fair, a convention, where they come from all over the country, and they actually they vote on a king and a queen hobo. And they make distinctions. Now this distinction is pretty funny. A hobo is a person who jumps on a rail and seeks work. Makes sense. A tramp jumps on a rail, but he doesn't seek work. And a bum doesn't jump on a rail and doesn't want to work. That's the 3. Funny. I did the piece just out of luck. Now, what's the Geppetto moment? I told you once before in another show that I read everything, and you should read everything, even if you don't understand it. Read all kinds of different things. And what I do is I read a lot of science, because those people, the technology people, the science people, they're on the cusp. All their thinking is transformative. That's what we want to be able to do. Let me give you an example. I read this article where they were working with a quadriplegic, a person who cannot move his legs or his arms. What they did is they put a sensor in his brain, and every time he thought about that particular part of the brain, the sensor triggered, and the robotic arm and actually moved to help him live his life. That's transformative. That's transformative, and that's what we have to do. not necessarily technology, but everything that we do in our business, in our social life as Vermonters. We have to think in that kind of creative way. Let's go to the third piece. This is animal energy. Now, I haven't been privileged to go to Africa on safari and see hundreds of thousands of animals running on a plane, to see a cheetah chasing, going 80 miles an hour, to hear elephants trumping and so forth, no. Or lions prancing, no. But even reading a magazine or looking at a movie, or you feel that animals have an energy. Animals help us, and yet we kill them indiscriminately. There are 33 species of big cats. 13 of them are extinct. They're not going to exist. Elephants are being killed at 100 a day. 100 a day. Within 6 or 7 years, there'll be no elephants. They're even hunting giraffes. We have to stop. Stop. Now, this was the purpose of this piece. Now, here's the Geppetto moment. A few years ago, I read a book called Drawing on the Left-Hand Side of Your Brain, or the right-hand side, one or the other. In that book was a chapter about developing creative pathways in your brain. And what the author said was simply this: when you're doodling, draw something. But draw it upside down. Look at a refrigerator, make the top the bottom, the bottom the top. Draw something upside down. When you do that, it creates an unusual set of pathways in your brain. It uses more of the brain capacity. And when you use more of the brain capacity, what are you doing? You're giving yourself additional tools to develop better ideas to make your life better. And that's where I got that, not particular this concept, but put that in your toolbox. Now, as we reach the end, in the last 3 shows, we covered 10 techniques. I want to go over those techniques. Very simply. You don't have to get out your pencil and paper. If you want them with a little explanation, just send me an email, and I will send you a list of these 10 that we covered, these techniques with a little explanation. But let me just briefly go over them. Get out of your comfort zone. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot create transformative ideas by being in your comfort zone, by using your old ways. You cannot do it. It will never happen. You must take risks. You must have a passion for new ideas. When you get together and you're trying to come up with a concept, whatever it might be, you're not looking for harmony or consensus. You're looking for innovation, transformative innovation, and that's what you have to do. It's very important. Empty, mindfulness. One time during the day, just try to eliminate all the monkeys in your brain and sit and relax and become mindful. If you're brushing your teeth, just brush your teeth. Concentrate on your teeth and your brush. Don't think of it. It's very difficult to do, but it's very helpful to develop your brain power. Art exposure. Artists by nature are transformative. Go to art galleries. Look at pictures, not for decoration, but for what the artist is trying to say. When you look at that, what he's trying to say, you in turn will develop better pathways in your brain so you can say transformative things when you're making decisions. Read the fringes, read everything you can. Even if it's the crazy stuff. You don't have to understand it, read it. It generates a lot of ideas that you could use to make decisions for yourself. Focus listening. This is listening with your whole body. Listen with your eyes. If you're talking and you're hearing data from somebody, watch everything that's going on. It's amazing what's not being said is really being said if you listen in a focused way. If you listen that way, you will hear these things, and you'll be better. You'll absorb the data, and you'll be able to make better decisions. Brain mapping. It's a diagram. You put the idea down on a piece of paper, and then you diagram it. Other ideas that come to you, and if 2 ideas link, you link them together, like you used to do when you're in grammar school. You diagram sentences, the adverb, the verb, and so forth. Same thing, do it with ideas. It will give you a way. It reaches into your brain that you're not going to reach normally by just writing things linear. Brain map. Dreaming. You got to dream like I dream. This is the idea. I go to bed with an idea that I want to solve concept-wise. I have a pen and pencil. If during the night the idea wakes me up, I write it down. If the idea lives through the night, then it's a good idea and I'll go with it. If it doesn't live through the night, well, I don't go with it. Churches, synagogues, mosques. You don't have to participate in the rituals, but they're full of energy. People come there to pray to their gods. Sit in those places. It's amazing what you'll feel. And that feeling, those emotions that you feel, will help you make better decisions. I don't know how it works, but the energy in that place, in those places, is wonderful for creating better transformative ideas. Meditation. Read, there's so many books. Get the books. Find a method that's good for you and meditate. It brings the brain down to a certain level. Again, I don't really understand it, but what it does, it helps you create the consciousness. It probably reaches beyond your subconscious somehow. Brainstorming. Two very important things when you get together and you get to brainstorm an idea. It has to be a small group, 8 or 9 people, maximums, less people, better. Big people, no big idea. Second important issue, no judgments. All ideas. Nobody stands up and tells a story or makes a judgment, whether this idea is good or bad. No, it cuts off the brain. Just create ideas. And it's amazing how many ideas you'll get if you follow those rules in brainstorming. Now, as we end, I'm going to introduce another idea. And I'm calling it the Geppetto Challenge, for whatever I want to call it. We have a lot of opportunities in the state of Vermont to use creative ideas, to address these problems in a creative, transformative way. For example, we're probably leading the states or other states in solar energy. But every time someone wants to create an array of solar panels, it's contentious. They go to court, they argue. People say, look at the view, it's terrible, you're destroying the pastoral look of Vermont. Well, okay, maybe it is. However, why couldn't an array of solar panels be beautiful? Why couldn't it be designed beautifully? So not only will we interfere with the aberrance of the things sitting there in our land, but what we also could do is maybe create a tourist attraction on the road. For example, I haven't thought about this deeply, but let me just give you a few ideas. Why couldn't you plant bushes along the side, topiary bushes, and cut them into animals? So when you're driving by, you see these animals loping along the field. Why couldn't you put a living wall, a wall of flowers and plants? The Japanese do it all the time to soften the image of their buildings. Why couldn't you do that? Simply. We have so many artists in Vermont, for example. Artists can do fences, beautiful things, paintings. They could take material and make it flutter in the wind, and that would be beautiful to watch. So now you're looking at not an array of solar panels, you're looking at something that's creative. That's transformative thinking, and that's the challenge that I offer you now. If you have such ideas, send them to me and we'll share them. If you're in a position to make those kind of decisions, bring it up. Use your tools. That's the whole idea. Use the tools to create transformative ideas. And if you don't have it in that position, send the ideas to your legislation. Vermonters must begin to think creatively and transformatively. Now with that, that's our show. I'm Lou Scott. This is the Geppetto Room, where you don't have to be creative to be creative. You just have to be you. Until next time.